Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today I want to talk about this Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez MSNBC interview because it turns out all your concerns about the migrant crisis, all your concerns about these people flooding to the southern border, the crime associated with it, and all these other issues in the United States of America don't actually exist at all whatsoever because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has decided you're just an evil white racist. You're full of evil white racism, and honestly, you need to shut up because she's gonna call you racist because this is the only strategy that left-wing progressives actually have related to almost any issue, but definitely related to the migrant crisis. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
Republicans all over the country, including last night in Kentucky, are voting to roll back child labor laws, calling it a thoughtful solution to get more workers back in the workforce.
Now, you might be a bit confused right off the bat that Alex Wagner is starting off by talking about this Kentucky child labor law and making the case that, listen, what Republicans are doing is compensating for their evil white racism against migrants by deciding that they want to send your kids to the factories, send your kids to the mines, go get them killed in all these different jobs because they're so evil white and racist, but they also need the labor and they know that they're wrong, so they're going to send your children to go and function in the economy even though it's dangerous and they want to kill them because they're so racist. Now, the reason I want to go over this particularly in the beginning is to show you how nonsensical it is, because the Kentucky child labor loosening or whatever in no way, shape, or form does what they say, and it's basic logic and common sense, and honestly, we baby the children's way too much in the United States of America in a lot of regards, and to me, it's rich that a law that allows with parental permission children aged 16 and 17 to work longer hours as long as they maintain a certain GPA is horrible and terrible and dehumanizing. But also, children as young as 8 can pick their own gender identity, and you as an adult need to listen to the children's. So, Kentucky law limited the amount of hours that children could work on a school day to 6. And when I say children, I'm talking about 16 and 17-year-olds. That limit actually increases to 8 hours on a non-school day while school is in session, and up to 30 hours total during a school week, unless they receive parental permission to work more and maintain at least a 2.0 grade point average, because the state of Kentucky wants the kids to get an education and they want to at least have minimums because that's the number one priority.
Including last night in Kentucky, are voting to roll back child labor laws, calling it a thoughtful solution to get more workers back in the workforce. At the same time, they're blocking immigration reform that could give adult migrants the opportunity to fill those vacant jobs, many of them in dangerous industries.
Now, federal child labor laws don't cover the number of hours that 16 and 17-year-olds can work or place any restrictions on them in that particular regard. So all the state of Kentucky did right here was expand the possibility during the school week that they could work, while also expanding during non-school time how much these kids can work. But those are limited by the permission of the parents. So parents can decide for their own children, and now all of a sudden you can understand why the left wing is so panicked about this, and of course why they have to tie it to one of the isms. Because parents having input on their children rather than Ocasio-Cortez and Alex Wagner, you can't have that. What you actually need to do is have them decide what gender your child is and all these other things, because when it comes to working, 16 and 17-year-olds are absolute babies, but when it comes to major life decisions and surgeries and all that, then we gotta leave it up to the 8-year-olds to identify who they actually are.
At the same time, they're blocking immigration reform that could give adult migrants the opportunity to fill those vacant jobs, many of them in dangerous industries.
Now, I also want to point out that it is kind of interesting that these people who supposedly care harder about the migrants say that they need to go to these dangerous jobs that, by the way, these children's are not even working in, because it's like, well, you care about them, but you want to assign them to like this grunt work that you think is dangerous because that they're migrants for some reason, and yet you guys are the progressive ones. This reminds me of that like Sharon Osbourne clip where she was like, oh, Donald Trump, if you don't like Mexicans, who's gonna scrub your toilet?
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that, you know what I mean? Like, when I'm saying
there's more jobs to be
in LA, they always,
but
they don't.
You know, because Mexicans' role is to scrub the toilet of rich people like Sharon Osbourne, apparently, according to Sharon Osbourne.
I wonder what you think the sort of ethical, moral calculation here is to say, shut the borders down, as these Republicans fully and well know they need a workforce, probably of migrants, to work in these really degrading, dehumanizing, dangerous jobs in places like slaughterhouses, and would rather have children that are already in the country work them.
I mean, there is no ethical or moral calculation here that I think Republicans are working with. Putting the first and foremost, the amount of protections that they heap on to these places that are so dangerous, themselves operating so unethically, and making them so dangerous for any human, adult or child, to be operating in. But the idea that...
So Ocasio-Cortez is not the sharpest pencil in the pencil box. She's not a great communicator. So I want to give you the steel man of what she's saying so that you can actually understand it, because upon listening to it, even I find it to be unintelligible. So what she's trying to say, by the amount of protections they heap on this industry in this over-convoluted, I'm trying to sound much smarter than I actually am kind of way, is that Republicans don't regulate these industries enough to her liking, so they're dangerous for anyone, and they want to send children to those industries. That's what she's actually trying to say here, even though it's being garbled in her brain because she's not very bright, and also she's going to argue for migrants to be exploited in these ways. Again, something that she would call exploitation, because migrants are the best among us, but also they need to work these dirt jobs. And also Ocasio-Cortez is a progressive.
Republicans, in order to win an election, say we need to hermetically seal the border when they know that that is economic self-sabotage to the U.S. economy. And they are saying, let's do it anyway. And to compensate for the negative effects, we're going to allow and throw people's kids into factories.
So, yeah, basically her premise is exactly what Alex Wagner said in the open. They're sending the kids to the factories, McDonald's, the Wendy's. They're working at White Castle in order to compensate for the devastating impact of not having all these illegals coming to the United States of America, and by the way, claiming asylum, which means they have to be taken care of by the taxpayer while they can't work, because that is so economically productive to us to give all the money from all our city budgets to these illegal migrants.
That is what they are doing in rolling back child labor laws while being as xenophobic and anti-immigrant as they are, and while ginning up this false narrative about this being a crisis. And by the way, by then also preventing and blocking any legislation that would provide not just a path to citizenship, but a path to work papers.
So, of course, you're xenophobic. You know you're going to get called racist a little bit in the future. And she's like, oh, they're blocking any legislation that would allow a path to citizenship. And yes, they are doing that, because why should we let these people become citizens in the United States of America? I know this is shocking to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but the people in this country get to vote and make the rules for this country. That includes immigration, and you are not entitled to citizenship in the United States of America when you defraud the asylum system. And by the way, if you came in legitimately through the legal process, it would be easier for you to get working papers to work in the United States of America. But since they're defrauding the asylum system, there's all these delays that we are supposed to take as we process their asylum claim. Just don't let them claim asylum fraudulently. Deport the people who are doing so, and then we can talk about what's going on with who we want to keep and whatnot later down the road. But we have to get rid of these asylum fraudsters purely and obviously. This is creating many problems in the United States of America. But Ocasio-Cortez's thing is, well, if they show up to the border, fraudulently claim asylum, we should just legalize them. And how dare Republicans block legislation? How dare they disagree with me because, they just deserve to be citizens because they just came here.
A path to allowing people who want to work to be paired with American businesses who need people to work. And I mean, there is not only no moral calculation, there is no economic calculation, there is no logical calculation, there is only a political calculation.
Also, I can't help but point out that in other circumstances, Ocasio-Cortez would say that corporate America would be using this cheaper labor force in order to undercut the wages of the working class. And in fact, if this was actually implemented, she'd likely be arguing that case against the policies that she's advocating for right now. But right now, she's saying, oh yeah, we need to pair them with American businesses so that they could pay lower wages and undercut the wages of the working class because I'm Ocasio-Cortez. Well, she wants to make them citizens, and I want this new voter base in order to support me.
And that political calculation is we are going to keep whining about it. Mm-hmm. We are going to keep pretending this is a crisis while contributing to actual problems. And then we're going to block the solution so that we can campaign on it over and over and over.
Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest. It is true that the Republican Party wants this as an issue in order to gain votes. And this is unfortunate in the United States of America because we can never actually solve a problem, because any issue that is good enough to flip an election, people want to keep on the table for a long period of time. That being said, I don't take Ocasio-Cortez very seriously because, first of all, there's a bunch of issues that the left wing does this exact same thing for, but two wrongs don't make a who cares. The issue that I have with Ocasio-Cortez is not the generic hypocrisy that honestly is overplayed in political discourse in the United States of America. The issue is she's saying that Republicans are making this problem worse and blocking a solution to this problem while at the same time denying that it's a problem. Remember, according to her, there is no migrant crisis. There is no issue to be concerned about. So what the hell is she talking about with Republicans blocking a solution? Because there is no problem that we need a solution to, right, Ocasio-Cortez? Because the issue is Republicans are just evil white racists with their evil white racism. You can't have it both ways. And more importantly, this idea that the people who are having issues with the asylum fraud are just evil white racists is hilarious, because I'm Latino myself, got no problems with Spanish-speaking people, got no problem with Latinos, and I've said over and over again that legitimate people who are leaving Venezuela because of socialism would probably make fantastic Americans, because people fleeing socialism tend to make good Americans. Now, there's criminals, there's other people that are amongst that group, and I understand that, but I say fundamentally, you still have to, if you're going to apply for asylum in every country along the way, because if you create a system where you incentivize people to defraud the asylum system, then you will get people from all over the world showing up at the southern border and doing the exact same thing. And guess what? That's exactly what we have right now. See, this is what I call long-term thinking. I think a lot of people from Venezuela, again, would be good Americans, even though we are importing some criminals, some criminal gangs that are spreading. But I have a long-term thinking and realize that if we don't do something about this asylum fraud, we're going to set a bad precedent, and that's going to further extend the crisis. Ocasio-Cortez has no thinking related to this. She thinks if you show up, you just become a citizen. Well, what do you think is going to happen when that gets out there, when that magnet for migrants gets out there? If you just flood the border, overwhelm all of our institutions, you become all citizens, obviously that's going to lead to more people flooding the border.
We can call it caravans, we can call it migrant crises, we can call it family separation, and they will just recycle it over and over and over again in order to gin up, just so much animosity and destruction in this country and racism in this country, because that's the only thing that the Republican Party even is standing on at this point.
So I just want to point out the obvious, and then something that I've seen a lot of people overlook when they're covering this. So first and foremost, they denied that caravans existed. They called that a racist dog whistle. Now she's saying the migrant crisis doesn't exist because her only go-to is to deny reality, which makes sense. The woman is a socialist. You cannot be a socialist without denying the reality of what happens when those policies are implemented. But the third thing that I want to point out is the family separation thing, where she's talking about how Republicans called it family separation. This woman is so dumb. She has such a short memory. She's basically like a human squirrel that got elected to Congress, that she doesn't realize that she called it family separation when they were putting kids in cages. You remember all of that? That was something that was a Democratic talking point, and specifically Ocasio-Cortez had this dramatic photo where she posed in all white with other congresswomen, and then she was crying at a parking lot, by the way, about the devastating family separation thing that she was outraged about. But now she's so dumb, she's decided that everything related to immigration is fake, and this fake thing that she was advocating for gets lumped in there, and she just passes that along, and she's going completely unchallenged by Alex Wagner, because again, this is a puff piece for Ocasio-Cortez. She's coaching her through this particular interview. And again, I just want to point out, you can call it evil white racism if you want, but go listen to the black residents of any of these cities and how they talk about the migrants versus your average white person in the United States of America. They're significantly harsher.
I don't want them there. Take them someplace else or send them back to Venezuela. I don't care where they go. This is wrong. You got 73% of the people homeless in this city are black people. What have you done for them?
And by the way, this is one of the reasons why Biden is losing black support. So keep calling them evil white racists, Ocasio-Cortez. You're really setting yourself up for a dramatic failure.
You say it's a political calculation. I think that part is clear, but at the same time, it's like, if you told me that they're trying to weaken child labor laws on its face as a headline, that should not be politically expeditious. The reason they've managed to be able to do it is because nobody's talking about migrants anymore. Nobody's talking about the value of migrants, and that includes Democrats.
Absolutely.
I mean, are you dismayed that this White House, it acknowledges or it believes that it has a political problem on the border, and it is playing decidedly on sort of the Republican turf here in terms of what it's suggested, what it's agreed to, the executive orders that have been sort of reported on thus far? Are you dismayed by that and the sort of contours of this conversation?
I am dismayed, and I'm very often find myself in shock.
So I just want to point out that Alex Wagner is saying, oh, the Democrats are going along with the Republicans. They were going to pass this bill that had a lot of Republican things in it. But in reality, what Ocasio-Cortez is advocating for is what they were doing before this became a political problem for the Democrats, or before Joe Biden acknowledged that it was a political problem for the Democrats. And that was, of course, ignoring the problem, letting these people surge to the border.
In fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are.
So Ocasio-Cortez is asking for the failed strategy before this negotiation strategy that they are currently engaging on, which, by the way, the Democrats are trying to weaponize the Republicans not supporting that bill as Republicans being responsible for the problem. So Biden's first strategy was to do what Ocasio-Cortez was saying, deny that there were any issues at all whatsoever. The second strategy that he's going with that actually has a better chance of working is to blame the Republicans for it, just say it's their fault and all that. But I do want to highlight a couple more clips in this before I close out this video, because I find the way that her brain works to be unbelievably fascinating.
At our current political situation, not just, I'm rarely in shock at the depravity of the Republicans, but sometimes, and this is long what I've been saying, sometimes we as Democrats have to grow a little bit of a spine around here. And part of that means defending immigration as a core value of the United States of America. Yes, on a moral and on an identity basis, but on a nuts and bolts basis.
So Ocasio-Cortez says that Democrats need to make an affirmative case for immigrants, and not just on the moral/identity basis.
Yes, on a moral and on an identity basis.
Which is these aren't white people, therefore they're good, which I just find to be one of the most oddest phrases that you could have right here. You can say moral, and sure, that's fine and all that, but the fact that she had to work in the identity portion of it shows you what she actually thinks. She's happy that these non-white people, in her mind, are coming to the United States of America because she believes reducing the grip of the evil white racists, which, by the way, is just white people as a whole, is a good in and of itself, in her opinion. Now, I happen to think that if somebody comes to the United States of America and they're a contributing member of this country, I don't care what their ethnic makeup is. I'm not one of those people who's obsessed with that. I also know that a lot of people in Latin America are white. Like, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the Spanish language, it comes from Spain. That's over in Europe. These people are speaking Spanish. A lot of them happen to be white. But yeah, it's just interesting that that's the first thing that she she'll say, like, listen, obviously based on identity, we have to let these people in because they're non-white, because, you know, white people are racist. But we also have to make the case that they would contribute something beyond that to the economy. And that's what she labels the nuts and bolts argument.
The United States, our culture, our population, our economy needs immigration like lungs need oxygen. And when you cut it off, we will start to die.
Look, I'm not someone who thinks immigration is inherently bad or anything like that. In fact, I think it's a testament to the United States of America, to the power of our society, that so many people want to come to this nation, because no matter what the propaganda we get from the left wing about how terrible, awful, evil, white, and racist the United States of America is, the proof in the pudding is in the taste, and just look at how many people want to get into this country each and every year. But the idea that we're going to put immigration in the same category as this asylum fraud that is going on right now is ridiculous and absurd in my opinion. If these people were coming through the legal process, if you wanted to alter the legal process to allow them to be guest workers or whatever, then at least they would come here without any guarantee of welfare or benefits and have to work and prove themselves. But that's not the case right now with this asylum fraud thing. They're coming here, they're demanding perks, they're going above and beyond to left-wing progressive cities, sanctuary cities where there are better perks, and even when they receive them and there's mild cutbacks because, you know, we don't have unlimited resources, they start protesting, rioting, and creating all sorts of problems. So they're not working, that's the issue. They're gumming up the asylum system, and legitimate people that are actually fleeing persecution are now going to not have their cases heard with the level of detail that they need because of all these people who are economic migrants committing asylum fraud. And by the way, she's acknowledging right there that it's all about economics in her opinion, and they're coming here and they want to work and all of that, when in reality, the issue is they're committing fraud in the asylum system, which is creating a bunch of these negative effects that we haven't seen before. I mean, remember, illegal immigrants used to cross the border and not try to get caught. Now they rush to Border Patrol, say the magic words, and they're entitled to all these ridiculous welfare benefits, and then they ask for a free ticket to a left-wing progressive city where they could leech off that system and get better benefits than your average citizen. And then these mayors end up cutting benefits in order to support them. That's the issues that we're talking about right here, and she just wants to conflate that and throw it all in the same bucket as immigration, even though there's clearly and obviously legal immigration and illegal immigration, and then another additional category, which is asylum fraud, which is a category or subcategory in illegal immigration. So yeah, Ocasio-Cortez, it's not going to work. You can call people racist all you want, but people aren't afraid of that. You've been doing that for years and years, and we're done with it. We're done with you, and we're going to do something about this border, and we're not going to grant all these people citizenship. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social media. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Ocasio-Cortez declaring the conversation around illegal immigration to be evil, white, and racist, because of course she did. Till next time.